everyone. Welcome to Risk Roundup. The blockchain revolution is here. This technology brings forward a potential to provide individuals and entities across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia, in short referred to as NGIOA, a trustable digital infrastructure for a fair and balanced economic ecosystem that is based on shared information and distributed trust, that is transparent and trackable in cyberspace, geospace, and space, in short referred to as CGS. The blockchain-driven transformation has blurred the boundaries between cyberspace, geospace, and space. As the blockchain-driven digital infrastructure provides protection from digital crimes and brings forward a barrier against socio-economic instability, it becomes a driving force of the digital global age, where the rules for competition and collaboration are just beginning to be rewritten. The question is no longer whether the digital disruption, transformation, and revolution that we are witnessing today on the backbone of blockchain will transform industries and economies, but rather how will they do so? To discuss that further, to discuss blockchain revolution further, I am delighted to welcome Xiaochen Zhang to Risk Roundup. Xiaochen is the founding partner of FinTech for Good, and he's a contributor to CCTV-America. Welcome, Xiaochen. We are honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Thank you very much, and I'm very honored to just be here with you and others. Yeah.
Wonderful, Xiaochen. So, as blockchain promises the digital infrastructure of a digital global age, what is the nature of transformation possible in cyberspace, geospace, and space?
Yeah, the very interesting part of the whole blockchain contribution is that to connect the physical space and also the digital space. And one of the interesting part of that is, there in the physical space, there are a lot of transactions are being done, and no matter is is the asset to asset, is the currency to currency, or is the service to service, and a lot of time that we can see risks associated with those transactions, and the trust related issue, a fraud issue, or trading dollar issue which need to be addressed. The blockchain is one of those technology which actually can just to address those in threefold. One is that to just through automation, through bring this technological solution to facilitate the physical. And the second part is that to digitalize the physical into making them as a digital assets. Then using the digital bring the digital asset to the blockchain system, and then to facilitate that transaction again to address those fraud and other risks. And the third part is that to just combine the physical and the digital as a one. And one example of that is since time that we'll have around 50 billion IoT devices, which will be just all over the world, and then we are connected, and everything we do are connected. And but currently, that's our infrastructure doesn't allow that kind of transaction communication, and blockchain can also facilitate the physical to talk to the digital, and digital talk back to the physical in a safer and risk-proof way.
Yes, very true, Xiaochen. And the question is not whether the digital disruption, transformation, and revolution that we are witnessing today, because of not only blockchain, but as you just mentioned, IoT, and then artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and more, it is going to transform nations and economies. So it's just a matter of time to see. It is not a question whether it will transform. It's just a matter of time to see how will they do so using the backbone of blockchain. So this is a very fascinating, very interesting time that we are all living in, and blockchain technology forms a barricade against the socio-economic instability across nations. It also provides a protection from digital crimes, and it seems that blockchain provides nations a potential for a trustable digital infrastructure for a fair and balanced economic ecosystem, because it is going to be based on shared information and distributed trust that is transparent and trackable. So from your assessment, how are nations responding to the blockchain driven revolution that would bring transparency, trackability, trust, and accountability in the decisions that are made across nations at all levels?
Yeah, and I just want to start from example that when you just look at who are leading the digital transformation, some smaller country actually play a much bigger role. And one example is Estonia. That from the e-Estonia project, the whole country, and when you just see that one of the country that's citizens really engage with the government and also conduct their daily business and also their daily life with all the digital facilitated processes and technologies. And if you are a business person that through the e-Estonia project, you can just apply for your license and conduct your business in a much safer and a better way. And then the government is behind that. And when you also just look at, for example, smart city blockchain initiative in Dubai city, and again, that the government started from the strategy that which put a lot of government existing document, future documents on the blockchain, and then to just help citizens and also businesses to streamline the process, then they can just get a better service. But in the meantime, that's definitely Smart Dubai project or Smart City Dubai project also include the communication between blockchain technology and IoT technology, and then really just to start a pilot, how to just combine all the emerging technology as a whole solution to address some of the initial challenge. And in the US, we can also look at, for example, blockchain initiative in Illinois states, and the state starts from the first the blockchain guidance, which was coming from the policy level, and then to just define how the government should respond to the new technology, what are the playground, how to define the playground. And then from there, under the guidance, there are quite a number of very exciting blockchain initiatives, including a blockchain center, which will just identify the solutions, get it tested, and roll out in the near future are there already. And then when you just go to China, and the central bank already have the first pilot or tested the digital currency, blockchain-based digital currency pilots was already carried out in 2016, and the national level rollout is really also underway, and several municipalities in China is also taking on blockchain initiatives to address ecosystem payments and infrastructure facilitation, and also financial transaction, environmental governance, and all those issues.
Yeah, very true, and you gave really good examples. But for nations to make real progress towards digital transformation and inclusion, each component of a nation, that is government, industries, organizations, and academia, they need to be critical allies and collaborators. But at this point, we don't see necessary collaboration and cooperation. Do you think that blockchain technology leaders and visionaries are concerned about this lack of collaboration and cooperation? And if they are, how do they plan to address this concern in context with poor connectivity, weak government institutions, and ill-defined or unstable policy environments? Because it's not just about developed countries, but there are so many developing countries where the government institutions are not very effective, or the NGOs or any other global institutions, they are not effective, and the policies and all that are very unstable. So it is not just about the technology. To be able to succeed, to have a successful transformation, we need many other, variables and factors also develop and, strengthen in parallel. But I don't see that.
Yeah, and this is a very good question, and I want to reframe it in the way that we are living in a world with both challenges and opportunities, and each government is making their biggest effort to try to be the problem solver for those challenges. Of course, they have different constraints. And one of the constraints is that to understand the challenge with the new lens of through the new lens of the technology, and then they can just through those new lens that they definitely are able to just come up with new solutions, which can be tested, which can potentially really just address those issues which can never be solved in a timely manner or in an efficient way. And from that, as what you mentioned correctly, that there are, for any new technology to be adopted at a national level, it takes time. And we do see that, more dialogue, more collaboration is needed. And one example, of course, here that, different organizations will all play a very important role in this building the ecosystem and also make the ecosystem work. And we are seeing quite a number of government-led initiative and private sector-led initiative or NGO-led initiative, all with the same goal. And I think one message of that is all these efforts need to just define a space where all can play, not create new silos. And so that is one message. The second one is that there are some impactful platforms and initiatives which are having the ambition to address that. One of them was an initiative led by us. It's called the Ministers' Conference on Blockchain. And the idea is very clear that for blockchain to be taken seriously in different countries, and one thing is that blockchain has to be a solution for different sectors, not only in the financial sector. When you just look at the financial sector of blockchain technology application, around more than 95% of applications in the financial sector. But as a future infrastructure level of technology, it definitely need to go beyond the financial service. And for that, we need to engage Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Education, all need to be involved in that. And but for the government to just before they can take on the technology, the first primary task is that to help the ministers and the policymakers to understand the technology and also link the technology with the challenge that they are facing, and also should get inspired by other ministers of their ongoing work, how they have embraced the technology, how their problems are solved, addressed by the new emerging technology. So that's why through this new initiative, we hope to get more ministers enter into this space, having a dialogue to just meet with the private sector, the technology experts, and then finally to define a space where that they can just do the pilots, identifying or matching the problem with the solutions. And we expect that we'll have the first ministers conference in 2017. And we also will just provide several frontier labs, which will help ministers to just build their blockchain solutions and facilitate for the pilots.
Yes, very true. And like you said, I mean, that there needs to be broader development of redesigning of the systems at all levels. It is not just within the financial industry, but across each and every nation's governments, industries, all industries, not just financial industries. academia and organizations. So there needs to be a redefinition and redesigning of all the systems at all levels, and it is going to take time. But what is fundamental is that while the blockchain, and we just talked about this, that while it is revolutionary, there still needs to be broader collaboration, cooperation, so that we can address the challenges that are ongoing for the broader implementation. But while the concerns remain, perhaps the most encouraging benefit of blockchain technology is the incentive it creates for everyone to work honestly, where rules apply equally to everyone in cyberspace, geospace, and space. And in addition, one of the most important feature, which is very exciting to everyone, is that blockchain allows individuals across nations to interact, deal, or transact directly with one another without going through any middleman. And that is perhaps the biggest advantage that people see in this, that the role of middleman is diminishing as blockchain is taking over. Do you see, what kind of benefits do you see because of this diminishing role of blockchain?
Yeah, and for me, that's the real potential of blockchain doesn't lie in those areas where then they disable the government functions, or to just facilitate process where that government cannot regulate or cannot prove, and that's not the area that I'm interested. And when we just look at those challenges which are around us, and we always take our lens through the theory of no change, meaning that a lot of things need to happen, but it's not happening. Why? What are those factors? What are the risks associated with those facts which make or hinder the process from the broader adoption of blockchain technology? I see different risks. The first risk, or the top risk, is really that this the notion of decentralization and the centralization. And if the technology becoming used in a way to just create risks for the governments, for like facilitate cross-border money laundering and other potential issues which the government has big concern, then the technology go to a direction where that the government need to watch it and have it shut down. So that we don't want to go to that route. So that's why in this risk roundup, and I think we need to also look at what are the risks that government is taking if they support the technology adoption, and what are the low-hanging fruits, what is the longer-term road plan that the government can look at it in the way that one, it can really help the government to address some of the huge challenge like energy access, like universal access to healthcare, like how to address the education fraud issue in education certification system, and how to use the new technology to enable ecosystem payment, and how to just make the government public service providing process becoming more transparent, and also add more, make it reduce in a cost-effective way, but much more effective. And also for the public service, they can just make all the reporting process becoming, much less stringent in the way that citizens can get engaged much easier than before with the government on that. So I think the top one is that the technology, the future of the technology for me, lies in the areas where that the private and public can really collaborate using the technology. And the second point I want to mention is that in those areas that where that as taking your first last question and this question together, a roadmap is really important. So that's why for example we launched a smart city blockchain lab in April. The first task that we took for the lab is to design a smart city blockchain development framework. So only when the framework is ready and it's becoming a widely used framework that all concerns are addressed and also the process are defined, the key players are identified, and then we can just all use a framework which can just make all the innovations happen in the way that's in a coordinated way, but all the positive side of the technology will just come out, and then the citizens and the stakeholders can benefit from the technology.
Absolutely, you made a very key point that we need to define the roadmap. We need to have that vision of where we are going, what kind of systems we need to develop. Now, blockchain is a key technology for digital systems because its ledger can record transactions in a tamper-proof fashion. And it also gives us complete transparency and auditability. But any blockchain-based system will be designed to allow global participants and in a collaborative, cooperative manner, both independently and collectively, to trust the digital infrastructure via a consensus mechanism. But when it comes to redesigning and redefining systems at all levels, as you just mentioned, we need to have a clear vision and roadmap. How will we use blockchain technology effectively? Do we have that kind of vision or roadmap that has been even at least talked about across nations at all levels? Do we see that beginning of that kind of discussions? And are there any problems or issues that needs to be resolved for developing that kind of roadmap? Where do you see a need for more effort?
Yeah, and this is a fascinating question. Just the question itself adds so much value to the discussion. And because the big picture here is that blockchain technology is really at its infancy. Although a lot of people are talking about it, but even I take it as there are three different group of people when they're talking about blockchain. And then the first group is that the early adopter who already just have understand the technology and also support technology and also understand the risk, and then it's really just start already full speed working on that. And for them we call it converted. So then those people I always say that for those converted, that's we may need to just look at how to avoid the risk, not just because you are converted and then the risk associated with technology may be neglected. And so that conversation should, the risk related conversation need to be brought to that community. The second group is that who heard about it, who may be fascinated about, or who, but there's not much ground. They just think something may happen. Great, they are looking at it. So for that group or community, a lot of education need to just come into that conversation. So that's why the one-on-one type of conversation will be very important to just bring both the opportunity and risk into their understanding, and then they can just connect their problem or the challenge they are facing with the specific technology options and understand how to just define their own roadmap. And the third group is that those who really don't understand the technology and are so scared, but they know the keyword like distributed ledger, or they know the keyword that this intermediation or that, and then they get scared. And then they want to keep the technology, but they don't understand it. So those people is again, the technology as its infancy. We have quite a large community there, which are against all the technology. So then they are talking about a lot of time the negative side of the technology. And when we just understand that there are three different type of conversation are ongoing, and when we as the audience or everyday people hear those conversation, we need to be aware that the conversation actually coming from their own backgrounds and where they stand in this different spectrum. And so as of the system-wide adoption and the roadmap type of conversation, and I think a lot of more conversation need to happen. And now I'm very happy actually there are a lot of conversation are happening. But again, from the conversation to actions, it takes some time. I give you a few examples that for such system-wide coordination, that we need a big organization who have the convening power to bring different stakeholders to the table. And the UN system is definitely one of the actors which will play a big role. And interesting enough that UN has a small group of experts. They are looking into it, and every month there will be the UN internal meetups, and then they also are identify pilots, and then from those pilots they are having conversation with the countries and different agencies and private sector. And from World Bank, that they are also highly engaged in this conversation. That a new lab potentially will be launched very soon, and the lab may play a big role in bring different stakeholders together. And 2 or 3 months ago, that IMF also launched its blockchain advisory group, and then they can also work with central banks or Ministry of Finance, then to bring that conversation to that level. And from the industry level, that in DC, that's one of the very important organization as the Chamber of Digital Commerce, and which were able to bring together a lot of policymakers from the United States, working on the policy issue and helping the policymaker to understand the technology to facilitate this kind of public-private partnership type of future technology development. And also in the developing country, from the EU side, from the EU Commission level, there is also the advisory group who is working closely with the EU commissioners on this. And from developing country, that's as I mentioned to you of our ministers conference, and we do have quite a number of ministers who show interest. They want to engage in the conversation. And so all this show that as a new technology, and we do have some momentum. And one other platform I forgot to mention, that is the World Economic Forum. And they were able to bring the world leader to the forum in each of their summits. And for the forum last year and this year, blockchain will be a key topic. And as of myself, that's from the time when I just take on blockchain as one of the areas that I'm working on till now, every month, and I'm talking to at least 1 to 4 forums or summits on blockchain related issues. And those communities are really very, very different in terms of spectrum. They're coming from the policy or innovation or the big corporation, or it's the financial sector. And so there are a lot of existing platforms and conversations are ongoing. But again, when we just go back to changing conversation to actions, it takes some time, but luckily that we are seeing some pilots already. But again, from pilot to scale up, it's another, several hundred steps away. Yeah.
Yes, very true, very true. It is, all of this will take time. Now, if we talk about, before we go to the economic systems and how to redesign and what is going on, very briefly, let's talk about how we can redesign government systems. Uh, how we can transform the governments from where they are currently to where they need to be. That a governance model that is fit for a digital global age. And to begin with, it seems that the blockchain can improve record keeping in the public sector. That is, already seen, and based on the record keeping advances, uh, there are many changes that can happen across all levels of government, irrespective of whether it's local, state, or national, or global. So there are already some initiatives that I'm seeing from across nations, where the governments have started implementing some programs for record keeping, that for land ownership, and some many other areas. So what is your assessment? What are you seeing as far as the government systems are concerned?
Yeah, and when we talk about government system or public service providing process, and as we go back to my first statement, that is we first look at each government agency, and then what challenge they are facing, and blockchain could potentially address those challenges. So those are the three steps. If the government doesn't see the issue, or the citizen didn't demand for the issue to be addressed, then there's no change needed. But so that's the first part, is that the agency need to identify this is an issue to be addressed, and blockchain can help, and then the rest can happen. Or is the citizen demand the agency to change, to improve their service providing, and from that they also identify the blockchain can be a solution to address those challenges. So then that is another, no matter it's bottom up or top down. So we have to connect the technology with the problem. And for all the conversation I had with different players in the ecosystem, we never want to change the system using blockchain. We want to use the blockchain to just address challenges. So that's my first message. The second one is that I want to give you a few examples of what is happening, and we take education as an example. That's a lot of government are issue certificates and for different individuals. Then those individuals use certificates to qualify them for different jobs and for being employed by employers. And so then for the government is one of the function they have is, after they issue the certificates, then they also have to just verify the certificate, because fraud is a major issue in many countries. And the $1 trillion are really just being lost from the fraud. But many times the government don't have that system which are supporting them. And then the current certificate verification system is really slow in responding to requests. It's not cost effective, because individuals need to just go back to their huge library or the storage room to look for certificate, and then finally to combine compare these two, and then to issue or to say this is verified. And a lot of governments are short in hands or workforce, and then this kind of services which take away quite a number of government employees to do some so those kind of services definitely highly possible, are very beneficial for the government to just use a blockchain-based system, that you have a certificate, an employer can just verify on spot, and the government doesn't need to have anyone who will just do do the transaction and then go back to the room to just combine, look for, and then to compare the certificates and all that. So from that, it will reduce the government budget dramatically and also improve the efficiency and then improve their, the service satisfaction of their service providing. So for those areas, that's definitely the low-hanging fruits, where that blockchain application can address some existing issues that the government is really facing, and then the beneficiaries are very clear. It's the employers, it's the individuals who take many hours to just complete that learning and then to finish that test. So this is one of very good example how blockchain becoming a system which everyone participating in the system get rewarded. So we want to identify those areas in each ministry, in each sector, and where that blockchain can just really help all players. Then we start from there to just create more momentum to get the system and technology tested, to make the policymaker and big corporation more confident in the technology. And then there that we can just have another round of conversation regarding that what are the most potential where the technology lie without taking this more opportunistic approach.
Yes, very true. No, it's a very good point that you made there. And it also seems that the governments can easily simplify their operations and data processing. That itself will be a powerful way for governments to get their all different agencies, organizations having one simple flow of data and infrastructure. That would simplify everything, for their operations, and it would be very helpful for the government agency to access data. And of course, there are also a lot of examples that you see, across nations where there are initiatives going on to simplify the digital voting, to actually create the digital voting system, not simplify, to create the digital voting system, because elections require authentication of voters' identity, and it also requires secure record keeping to track votes and tally votes and declare the winner, and that all is possible using the blockchain in a very transparent, trackable, trustable manner. So there are a lot of initiatives going on across nations to redesign, redefine and simplify processes across government agencies and governments. So we'll have to wait and see how the advances have move forward and what kind of response they are getting from governments. So we will wait and discuss this in the coming months and years, and we will see how the systems are being redesigned across nations' governments. But let's talk about how we can redesign economic system. If we look at the economic system, imagine being able to move all kinds of assets, liabilities, risk and rewards across borders, nations' borders, and between institutions without paying huge transfer fees. The payment of huge transfer fees is a problem for so many nations. So it seems that this is where blockchain technology promises huge benefits. How do you see blockchain transforming the monetary ecosystem at all levels, local, national, and global?
Yeah, and again, this is a fascinating question by itself. And I want to just use a few examples to just say that how blockchain technology can benefit the global or national or local system. And the first one is, it's an emission trading scheme, which is an international scheme. And before that, when we just under Kyoto Protocol, there is a mechanism called the Clean Development Mechanism, and where that the project developer can just basically develop emission reduction projects, renewable energy efficiency projects, and then they can sell the emission reductions to buyers. And then, of course, that's the third party need to validate the documents and verify the emissions occurred. And to just start from project initiation to the final issuance of the carbon credit, it takes from 14 months to even 24 months. And the parties involved include the United Nations, UNFCCC, and it will include the third-party validators such as Munich Re and TÜV and other type of third-party validator. And it involves project developers, traders. It also involves the capital markets, and all parties are involved. But then this process is extremely costly. And finally, when we just look at the project owner who just want to do good to the environment, and then finally all the middle process will just get some, add some cost into it. Validation, need to just be, the cost occurred in validation will just increase the price of the carbon credit. And the verification process also will just increase the cost. And the trading parts, the reporting and all that. So with a blockchain-based system, that all parties can just, have the documents uploaded on the blockchain system. And then from the project initiating, and then all data can just go directly on the blockchain. The verifiers even, we can just take the verifiers away, or just give, if in this case it's the UN can really just get the data by themselves without a verifier, the third party. So with taking all the third party out of that, and the cost reduction of that process will be around there are some existing systems which are being developed by Energy Blockchain Lab in China. Their estimation is the cost reduction is around 60%, even more. And for the duration of the process, and before it, as I mentioned, from 12 months or 14 months to 24 months, to be cut to less than 3 months or even shorter. So that kind of benefits for the whole climate change is dramatic or enormous. So that's definitely is one very good example for the cross-border collaboration and how this can enable that. And the second, at national level, that we have the interstate crowdfunding as an example. That different states will just the money coming to this state, and then the fund can go to that project, and then again each funding will need to get the data back to just tell the investors that how the money is spent and what are the results achieved, and etc. And also as investor, they need to know that how well the company is doing, and all that actually again add quite some cost into a crowdfunding project. Finally, that's the startup or innovators who really want to get a currency or get money to just land their project, then have to just take a huge portion out of the money they raised, then to cover the cost in the process. And then with, again, blockchain-based system, that's many of the middleman related costs will be just cut, and then all the money will just go to the project directly. And this also apply for a lot of interstate or national level kind of project. Another example I want to give is at the local level, and which the interesting thing was this story is a real case that when I was giving a lecture in Qingdao City in China, and then some village head was in the class, and then they asked me the question that we every year that we basically are allocating government subsidies to farmers And we have also other grant-related, funding windows. We need to just, allocate money, and we need to have a system which we can just, allocate the currency or money in a way that everyone knows no wrongdoing occurred in the process, and all the money go to the right people who are eligible to the subsidy. And although we are doing something which is totally aligned with the procedure, but still, people still doubt whether we are doing the things according to the rule, or are we just doing some backdoor wrongdoing. And so using a blockchain system and to put all actions, the transactions on the blockchain, and everyone knows where does money go, and then after money, go to the person and what this person how the money is spent, what result being achieved. Then from the government side, that they becoming much more effective agency. And from the citizen side, they see that no one who have been manipulating the process, nothing wrong happened, then they will trust the government much better. So in using these three cases, and I want to just share with you and others that blockchain definitely can add great value at both at the global level or cross-border, or within the national border, or at the local level.
Yes, very true. No, thank you for sharing that. Now, as you have been, talking, and it seems like by removing barriers such as, intermediary banks or prohibitive cost or all kinds of waiting periods and regulatory restrictions, service providers from across nations, they can connect with the blockchain technology and open up systems to entire countries. And this is so beneficial because many emerging economies are off the financial grid. They have random regulations and they lack banking competition. A lot of banks are not even willing to exist in certain parts of the world. And because there is a widespread fear about fines and cash and criminal money markets, which can further cause damage to all these, already fragile economies. And it seems that since cash and criminal money movement go hand in hand, there are so many economies that are excluded currently from the traditional financial markets. And as I just mentioned, some banks don't even like to, exist in those markets because of the all kinds of fines and messy regulations that they have to deal with. So how does, from your assessment, where do you see the advances moving forward that would help the emerging markets overcome these barriers and be an equal participant in the global economic ecosystem based on the blockchain advances?
Yeah, and for this, and we launched a financial inclusion blockchain lab in April, and the mission of the lab is really to using blockchain technology to enable financial inclusion, and meaning that as what you shared, that many nowadays that we have around 2 billion people who are either unbanked or underbanked. And so, blockchain technology can really enable those, underbanked or unbanked people to access to financial services in different manners. And one is that, the reason that traditional, like the banking sector doesn't want to or doesn't have the interest to offer that service to those group of people is because of cost issue. And to provide a loan to those who don't have collateral is highly risky. To provide a loan to those who don't have an identity is too risky. To provide a loan to those who really don't have any financial transaction in the past is too risky. And to provide a loan to those who are in the remote areas where those banks don't have a branch is too costly. So all those contribute to the fact that those underbanked and unbanked will continue to not be able to access to financial services, and which are crucial for their personal development or for the country as well. So blockchain can really provide a solution in several manners. One is that helping those who don't have identity with the digital identity, and with the digital identity, that all your transactions are financial or non-financial transaction can be recorded, and then the financial institutions, including microfinance institutions, who normally looking at this sector, will have more tools to understand the risk better, and also design instruments or products which can just provide finance to those individuals or small businesses.
Yes,
and in addition to the digital identity, that another blockchain use case in financial inclusion is that KYC, know your clients or know your customer, and meaning that from blockchain-based solution that traditional banks will reduce dramatically of the cost to assess the risk of providing or just create account for an individual. And from this, that many people in the rural areas will be able to just create or access to traditional banking services through blockchain-based technology. And another very important blockchain use case for blockchain for the financial inclusion is enable microfinancing institutions. And currently, that's microfinance, which has been really just very important in many emerging markets, are taking on quite some risks. And a lot of risks are associated with not knowing the customers well, not having their transaction record, and not knowing their social network, not knowing that who can just guarantee the loan and all that. And from a blockchain-based trusted community network, that microfinance institutions will have much more powerful tools which can enable them to just bring that necessary fund to many more individuals. And in the meantime, a lot of the microfinance institutions are facing the constraint from their investors, because their investors also are looking at returns and also looking at the risks associated with each loans they provide. And with a blockchain-based system, that they can just, the investors to microfinance institutions will get much more confidence that their loans will be paid back with reduced costs and risks. And so no matter it's for the traditional banking sector or for the microfinance institutions or for the individuals, and we can see that blockchain definitely will play a huge role to just help those underbanked and unbanked to just access to financial services.
Yes, no, absolutely. Those are really good examples. And you talked about microfinancing and digital identification. Now, blockchain, the distributed ledger can be the foundation for this new form of secure, portable digital IDs in a world where millions and millions still lack a recognized form of identification. It seems that in Egypt 90% of people, they have their homes and farms and all kinds of assets, but they don't have a single paper to show the ownership of that. There is no way they can verify that this was their farm, or this is their farm, or this is their house. So this can be the beginning of a revolution across many nations, where proving ownership of assets or even getting acknowledged as a citizen in itself is has been a huge challenge. So this will be a very, very beneficial identification, and ownership would be so beneficial to so many of millions across nations, because they have been excluded from the financial system and all banking systems and all kinds of systems. So this will make it very easy to verify transaction identities and remove the disincentives associated with so many international payments, with all huge fees. Like in emerging economies, they have to pay up to 15-20% transfer fees if they want to transfer money from one account to and send it somewhere else. We pay so little here in developed countries. So this will open up access to so many banking accounts, and it will be so easy for so many people. So these are amazing advances happening. And at the center of all that is going to be the collaboration and cooperation. We have been talking about this for the last few minutes about this, that unless we have the cooperation, collaboration, that is going to be very difficult to achieve what we want to achieve and the vision that we want to develop, to be able to create the systems and redesign and redefine the system that would help everyone across nations. But it seems that we are moving that path, and cryptocurrencies, bitcoins, they are beginning to provide people across the globe with instant, secure, and frictionless money. If we just talk about the cryptocurrency, where now it is not just Bitcoin, there are many different cryptocurrencies under development across nations. There are so many blockchains under development in parallel across nations. So we are just not sure which blockchain is going to be used across nations, on which the financial system, economic system, or any other system is going to be designed and defined, because everyone is getting into this blockchain. Is like a hot sector for everyone. This technology is exciting everyone, and everyone is working in silos, coming up with their own solutions. And like with any new innovation, it is understandable that there are many new different variables, and that are being developed, new different innovations that are coming out. But in the end, if we are trying to develop a global system or a national system, then we need to define and come to agreement of which blockchain we are going to use, and on which blockchain those developments, applications are going to be developed. That would be helpful to all the nations to create the incentives that we are trying to create, the system that we are trying to create. And my concern is there are too many blockchains that are under development, and there are too many cryptocurrencies that are under development. Which ones are going to be used? Which one is going to be used across nation?
Yeah, and so this, I think, it has both a simple answer or more complicated answer. The simple answer is that leave it to the market, and it's the reason is that as any new technology emerge, and it will just experience the whole technology adoption curve, starting from early adopter, then to the scale up to like mature, then to decline. And the blockchain will also just experience this typical technology adoption curve. And from that curve, it's a pure market mechanism, where that's we're going to see a market consolidation in the next 5 years. But before this 5 years, it all will be a market-based play out by the different players. That's which blockchain technology company have the vision and then implement their vision in a more effective manner, and then to just deliver the solution which are giving the confidence to the market, where that new customers, clients, start to take on their technology and drop to others, etc. All that will be a market-based approach. And of course, that as a government or as different institutions who are at this stage want to get a comfortable understanding that there are too many, and for us, we don't want to be the blockchain technology expert to just know everything, but can we really just anyone in the ecosystem help us to just reduce the level of complexity to make our life easier? So there are different organizations which try to do that. One example is that last year that we launched an insurance blockchain lab, and the simple task for us was threefold. The first one is that we develop a report and how blockchain can add value to the insurance industry, and what will be the technology roadmap, and for adoption of blockchain technology in the insurance industry, what will be the early stage low hanging fruit, and what will be the midterm, what will be the longer term. Then within each like a short term to long term, then what are the available technologies, all the edge platform, or the open ledgers which are associated with that, and what are the existing applications, and what will be the future applications, etc. We want to use the report to give the market some kind of our expert opinion or understanding of the market and technology. Then they can just select based on their need, the problem they try to address, and then with our analysis that what are the pros and the cons of each, then they can just take the ones which are the most suitable for the challenge they try to address. And we are not the only one who is trying to do that, and there are a number of organizations which try to provide that clarity, reduce the complexity for the market. And another initiative we just started is we basically, for each sector, we are building a blockchain use case development group. And, for each group that we want to just basically to create this, technology adoption curve on a roadmap where that, others can just look at it and then to get reference from it.
Yes, very true. Now there's so much to talk about. There are so many. We have barely covered, few areas of government and the economic system. There's still so much happening across other, industries and across NGOs and academia of all kinds of applications and developments are happening based on the blockchain. But because we have, 1 hour only, we won't be able to cover all of that. But there are, we do need to talk about the unknowns. While the blockchain technology is maturing, there are so many factors that needs to be evaluated and addressed to ensure the success of blockchain-based systems. Like we have already talked about how there is a need for cooperation and collaboration between all NGOs, between governments and industries and everyone, and how to effectively manage the concerns about, of course, privacy and security. We haven't addressed that today much, but we will be addressing, we have addressed that in the past in some other risk roundup, and we will be addressing this more about how to, even though people say blockchain is secured, is it really secure? Because there are some concerns, so we do need to address that, how to address the security concern, and how to what will be the cost benefit of blockchain based digital infrastructure. Because when we are trying to redesign, redefine entire systems across nations in cyberspace, geospace and space, it is a very costly affair, so we will have to address those aspects too. Now, how to, and then, there is also going to be discussions about how to scale these. What is the scalability? We are developing the systems, but are they scalable? Will we be able to create global systems based on the backbone of blockchain now? And what are the going to be how will we legally enforce the smart contracts? We do need to have that kind of affiliation, so that legality of the smart contracts, we have already started using that, but are they legal? How to enforce the legality? And those are many questions and unknowns that we do need to identify, understand, evaluate, discuss, and come up with sensible solutions. But we won't be able to address all that today. But what do you see are the main obstacles that needs to be overcome for the adoption of global, at all levels, the blockchain technology, to develop the systems that we are visioning, and that we see where we could reach on the backbone of the blockchain? But what are the key obstacles from your assessment that we need to address first before we address all the others, questions and concerns?
Yeah, and so again, this question is a $1 billion question. The reason is that when we just look at any technology, emerging technology, it does impact the existing system in a fundamental way, and which means that to unfold those risks and opportunities, and all players need to just jump into that. And then to just, from identifying the problem to just get them solved. And there are, at least for me, several steps. The first one is, as what you are doing, raise the right questions. And one of my friends, for example, is doing climate engineering work. And, before you put the climate engineer devices in our outer space, and the first thing is who will govern that? How can we just define the governance structure around that? The same kind of conversation has to happen in the blockchain field, that the governance structure, the framework, to ask the right questions before it's too late. Is it secure? And if it is broken, and what will be the plan B? And if our digital identity are stolen, and those kind of risks, how can we minimize, mitigate those risks and all that? If that happens, that do we have a system to back it up? And all those questions are like really important at this point. And I think that's as I shared with you earlier, and there are existing conversations around it, but then changing from conversation to institutionalize those questions, or then to have a more solid process to just incorporate those conversations, to make it as a process, then to generate some result or outcome from those process is extremely important. We are at the beginning of raising the right questions. Then to bring, only when we have the right question, then we can bring the right people around the table. And then we design a right process, then, we can come up with a right outcome. And that either can be a guidance or framework, and can be, whatever the result or outcome of that process. Then that should go in parallel with the technology development. Now we are seeing a lot of actions from the technology side, but the right questions need to be asked from the process governance and the risk from that side. And I think this conversation is extremely important, and I definitely think that risk Roundup or cybersecurity, your organization yourself will be able to play a very important role in that.
Oh, thank you so much for that confidence and saying that. Would you like to share with our global viewers and listeners what your organization, FinTech for Good, is trying to achieve, and what are your goals and missions? And if they want more information, where should they go to look for more information?
Sure, thank you. And for FinTech for Good, we are a global platform, and we really try to identify the best fintech and blockchain solutions, and then help them to grow into the new market and to solve the right problems. And for that, we have incubation, we have labs, we have acceleration program, we have the investment pillar as well. And of course, in each lab, we work with the partners to generate a lot of industry insights. One of our reports will be out very soon called the FinTech Capital of the World, and which really providing that regional hubs where that the new things or new exciting things are happening. And if we also will launch our global acceleration program very soon in London. Our launch event is in June on June the 16th, and in Copenhagen is June the 21st, and then in China that is June the 26th. And so if you happen to be in those areas, please reach out to us at info@fintech for good. 4 is the number 4, fintechforgood.co, not com, and info@fintechforgood.co, or you can just go to our website at www.fintechforgood.co.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Xiaochen, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on blockchain revolution, and I'm sure our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from the information you provided on the ongoing blockchain transformation across nations, its government and industries, organizations, and academia. While we couldn't go into detail about academia and organizations and even all the industries, but that information that you shared is going to be very, very useful. And even if a single individual or entity can come up with an idea to innovate using blockchain and bring the much needed transformation to their nation or to their industries based on the discussion we had today, this Risk Roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed this conversation, and I also look forward to have conversation with you and also your viewers in the future. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Xiaochen. So blockchain seems to be a much needed digital infrastructure for socio-economic development across nations. While blockchains are causing a technology revolution across nations, it is important to evaluate what else is necessary for the technology transformation to succeed. Risk Group Cybersecurity Risk Research Center and Strategic Security Risk Research Center are created for this very reason, to identify, evaluate, and manage the risk facing NGIOA in CGS. That means nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia in cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security, so if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the Risk Roundups, to watch the Risk Roundup videos or hear the Risk Roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com, and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree Pandya, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.